This is Barrie, a city constantly evolving. At any time, a whole host of pressures challenge the intricate tapestry of city government. In this series, we will explore the priorities deemed essential for progress, even if they don't always inspire unanimous applause. Join me each week for a candid conversation with a member of our city government as we uncover the stories behind the scenes of Barrie, a city on the move. Welcome to Barrie, City on the Move. I'm Arif Khan, and it's my pleasure to be your host in this series as we talk about the role of city governance and operations in terms of delivering a great quality of life for those of us who call Barrie a place to either live, work, and or play. In this series, we've been talking about that role of governance and operations, but today, particularly on this episode, we want to talk about the quality of life that we've come to expect or that we aspire towards when we choose to raise our family in a community, or we choose to even bring our business to a municipality that offers staff and leadership just that great quality of life. So with that in mind, it's a pleasure to have Carol Ann Ryan join me on the series, on the show here. And Carol Ann, you are the public art coordinator with the City of Barrie. Thanks for taking time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Arif. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. And we're going to talk about quality of life and the role of public art. And art as it pertains to our life, it can start in the school system and extracurriculars and our entertainment and our own personal ambitions. Maybe aside from our career, maybe we take an interest in art. And so let's talk about what constitutes public art and really the impact that it has in our lives as it pertains to quality of life as residents here.
Sure. Public art in particular is art in the public realm. So that means it's different than fine art you might experience in a museum or gallery, where it may be an entry point, a ticket perhaps, or you need to cross a threshold into that building to see the art on display. Whereas public art is something that exists to everybody in public space. It's available for free. It can be enjoyed by all. And it's something we find integrated into the places that we live and work and play.
And so that can cover a wide range, a wide scope in terms of its form. For those of us who are maybe seeing public art as newer, I mean, I think it's fair to say actually, typically as someone who likes to take a vacation maybe once per year, if I'm in a position to do so, we often will go to a place that we find draws our attention. And some of us will go for sports, some of us will go for relaxation, some of us will go though to experience culture. We'll go around the world. Maybe we have the opportunity to go to Asia or Europe to experience culture elsewhere. And we oftentimes will think of that other destination as an epicenter or an influencer when it comes to art. And so we might go to Rome, or we might go to Paris, or we might go somewhere along those lines, and we see art on display, not necessarily in museums, but the fountains, the Trevi Fountain, for example, something along those lines. And we tend to think of, or I think historically, I don't want to say we, that's not fair maybe to someone else, I have thought of going elsewhere to enjoy and consume and experience public art. What's happening here domestically, what's happening here right here in the city of Barrie that will maybe change my mind on how I view my own community when it comes to public art?
I think that's a great question, and absolutely traveling to experience art and culture can feed that desire to see more. And I think it's those experiences that folks in our community have had that has really driven the support to develop the program that we are growing here in the city of Barrie. And so as far as form in the city of Barrie, I would say for many people, they would associate something like murals or sculpture with public art. And we certainly have a number of those that are notable around the city. Our mural program has grown in recent years, but so has the range of media that we are putting into our public art projects. So public art not only includes, for example, paintings or sculptures in public space, but we've developed programs where we're integrating public art into our infrastructure. So for example, in recent years, we've started commissioning artists to create images that we can turn into wraps that cover our traffic cabinets. We've commissioned artists to create images to highlight our city in our bus shelters in an artistic way. And the forms continue on beyond that. Sometimes the public art forms come in the form of new media, such as sound or music, or sometimes they're in the form of text, where words or poetry are integrated into a 2D form, such as a banner. There's a number of different ways and forms that public art makes an impact in a community, and in Barrie we've certainly started to build on that and expand those forms.
I really appreciate that, because as you were describing it, I was picturing the traffic control boxes, for example, and I was like, you know what, you're right. You're absolutely right, and it does make a difference. In terms of how we consume it, though, is public art something to be stood back from and observed and admired, or is there also an interactive element when it comes to public art?
I think it depends on the work of art. It depends on what it is. It depends on where it is. It depends on the artist's intention for the piece. Generally speaking, anything that is placed in the public realm can safely be engaged with, in terms of, yes, it's something you can touch. Yes, it's something that can take a bit of impact from being in out of doors. But obviously, all of that within reason. But there are other forms that are meant for engagement. We've had some temporary installations that were put in place by our events team that were installed in Meridian Place that encouraged people to touch them. There were some wind chimes that people were encouraged to touch to hear them. There were some light pieces that people were encouraged to interact with their bodies, such as walking along and following a light pattern. So both exist, both forms, things that you can engage with and interact with and affect how that work of art performs, and others are there for us to simply enjoy as part of our environment.
Is it a reasonable statement in your perspective to suggest that a piece of art is designed to evoke an emotion or a reaction to the engagement or the observation of that piece of art?
Yes, I would say that's certainly part of it. I think art in public space gives us an opportunity to reconsider the spaces that we think we know, and whether that is a building, so that is some architecture that's been downtown Barrie for 50, 100 years. If a mural is painted on the side, we might look at it very differently than we had before. Or if a work of public art is installed in a park, depending on what that work of art is doing or saying, it will change our experience of the park, and whether it's the way we see it, whether it's the way we enjoy it. Maybe it encourages us to think about a topic in a way that we've never considered before. Maybe it's drawing attention to an element in the park that we never noticed before. Public art can really activate our minds and our senses in a way that I think is quite unexpected.
So what kind of thought then? That leads me to believe that there's a fair amount of thought in terms of selecting the right venue to house or host an art installation.
Yes, absolutely. I think a specific work of art should be considered for its place. We want to be considerate of the location of that work of art, how that meaning holds weight in the place that artwork has been installed. Perhaps there's a symbolic reason for a certain image or object to be in a certain location. I think a really strong example I'd like to speak to is the Horn in the Heart, which is currently installed in Meridian Place. It's a large steel sculpture that was created by John McEwen, who's a regionally based artist with a national reputation. He actually recently received the Order of Canada. And that sculpture was a commission after Meridian Place was built in response to a request and a gift from the Bob Hunter family, who wanted to see their father honored at Meridian Place because he was a big brass band player, he was a key member of the Barrie Rotary, and he was someone who for decades advocated for a performance space on the waterfront. So when their family came forward to the Public Art Committee, we were able to consider their request and speak with them about what their intentions were, and launched a public art competition from which John McEwen was chosen by a jury. And that work of art now is in Meridian Place, and it is literally, the design is a horn and a heart form merged together, and the artist's intention is to evoke that feeling between artist and performer, that connection, that relationship that occurs during a performance. And it's a meaningful piece above and beyond the fact that it honors this significant individual from our performing arts community, but it marks the space of Meridian Place. And it is in fact the first work of art that the City of Barrie commissioned that was made about an individual and a story from the City of Barrie, specifically for a location within the City of Barrie. So it has a very layered meaning, and whether individuals that interact with it know that or not, I think there's more to a piece knowing that it plays such a role in our history.
I love the fact that you bring out the observation that there's a story to be shared, and perhaps generationally and perhaps long after we're gone, that story can continue.
Absolutely. And if the story itself doesn't continue, we've put an object in space that is interesting to look at, that brings beauty to the space, that marks the place. It makes Meridian Place even more of a great place to be in because it has this significant work of art situated in it that everyone sees when they're there. You can see it from Simcoe Street. It's a really unique piece with elements of the steel cut out. You can see through it. It really just offers another element and adds texture to the experience of Meridian Place.
So with that in mind, I'd love to come back from the break, pick that up with you, because I want to continue to explore the evolution of the role of public art in the community and discuss some of the planned and some of the unexpected benefits of it. So stay with us for more from Carol Ann Ryan, who's the Public Arts Coordinator with the City of Barrie. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and I'm enjoying a fantastic conversation, and I'm learning a ton from Carol Ann Ryan, Public Art Coordinator with the City of Barrie in the Creative and Economic, or Economic and Creative Development Department. Did I get one of those right?
Economic and Creative Development.
Perfect. Excellent. Let's keep this going, because I think that there's a natural link into, well, one, the economic benefit and component, or the implied economic. We'll talk about that today. But let's talk about this evolution as we learn to understand the value of art, as we learn to understand the value of public art, and as we learn to understand how the integration of public art into community and society, the impacts that it has. Let's talk about what you've learned along the way throughout your career, and maybe give us a little bit of a sneak peek into your background, because you have a very interesting and storied background that qualifies you beautifully here to be taking on this role.
Sure, okay. Well, thanks, Arif. So I come to this role with a background working in the visual arts for 20 plus years at this point, but I did study fine art in university. I have an undergraduate degree in art and art history. I have a master's degree in art history, and I worked a number of years in museums and galleries, both private and public. I taught art history at post-secondary institutions. I worked with private collectors for a number of years. I worked with corporate collections around that same time. And when I moved to Barrie, I worked for the McLaren Art Center for a couple of years. I taught in the Georgian College Design and Visual Arts Department, and started working for the City of Barrie in 2021 as the inaugural public art coordinator for the City of Barrie. So there hadn't been a staff person dedicated to developing the public art portfolio before that time.
And it's interesting that the city clearly made a decision, or clearly took a stand in terms of acknowledging the value of the role and the value of art in the community, and to establish that position, that role. What has that allowed you to do? What has that allowed the city to do in terms of engagement with the public by establishing this role?
The staff position has certainly opened up opportunities for public art in a number of ways. I think it's important to understand that prior to 2021, when my role was created, public art did exist within the City of Barrie. We, Council, passed a policy in 2012 that laid out a plan for the intention to develop a public art program. But that was led by an advisory group to council, which is called the Barrie Public Art Committee. And they worked with what was at the time the Department of Culture, and worked on projects with the assistance of staff when there were opportunities. And that continued on for a number of years. And the departments at the city changed, so culture became the creative economy department, which then became economic and creative development, and public art within this new department was taken to this next level, where a dedicated staff role was committed to taking the public art program to another level.
Yeah, I want to just be clear, I don't think we should gloss over this, because I believe that this evolution itself inside the corporate and governance structure within the city and operation structure within the city is indicative of a city that's choosing to learn and choosing to evolve, and in that evolution recognized and acknowledged the role that art does play in terms of establishing places to live, places to attract people to migrate, places to attract corporations to migrate and invest their dollars. And of course, there are some benefits, whether they're health and emotional health and mental health benefits associated with engaging in art. And let's actually just take a pause for a moment, because if you look at what 2021 represented in terms of a moment or a snapshot in history, we were also right in the middle of a pandemic, if I'm not mistaken, and the city made a decision to acknowledge the importance and the significance of art in terms of the health and well-being of a community.
Absolutely. I think the pandemic really gave an opportunity to shine a spotlight on the importance of public art. Culture in the public realm was something that was free and safe, and something that communities could enjoy, individuals, families, within their public spaces, but remain distanced, but also giving them an opportunity to get out of their homes and see something different. At the City of Barrie in particular, that started with a project that we called Brightening Barriers. And that was started by the Public Art Committee, of which I was a member at the time. And that project was inspired by the conditions of the pandemic, the reconstruction of Dunlop Street, and an idea was born where, you know, our community could really use some uplifting and some brightening. Our business owners on Dunlop Street could really use a bit of a boost. That combination of the pandemic and the construction was really tough on our local businesses. So we developed this project where we asked the businesses to be our partners and allow us to use their outdoor spaces, their patio fences, because by 2021 we were gathering out of doors at certain times of the year, and use those patio fences as a venue to display art. So really opening up the streets, really bringing art right down to the street level, and creating not only something really interesting to look at. We commissioned 9 unique installations that year, but also something that would create excitement and drive people downtown, bring people back to downtown Barrie, bring people into our restaurants and into our businesses, not only to patronize those businesses, but to see this unique cultural experience. And all of those works of art were created by regional and local artists, and we were employing artists by creating that project. Again, during a tough time, we were brightening spirits, hopefully, and symbolically taking down the barriers that had existed by all of us maintaining our distance and separation, and creating this communal opportunity to bring people into downtown Barrie.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you and I'm going to offer you a disclaimer here. I believe you are not a psychiatrist nor a psychologist, but I don't think any one of us needs to have that degree, that doctorate, to understand and appreciate, even from our own lives and our own families, how our spirits kind of, either quickly or over time, really were challenged and we felt empty to a certain degree. So I appreciate the initiative that went here into this project. Are we, to the best of your knowledge, in terms of tracking engagement, tracking public attendance, tracking the attendance at theater or outdoor events, whether it's open air Dunlop or the other events that are held down in the open spaces in Barrie, are we back to pre-COVID time, and what is the role that art is playing in terms of bringing that back?
Well, I can't speak in terms of stats, are we back to pre-COVID numbers, but certainly I've understood in my broad understanding of the arts and culture sector, in 2024, we're certainly getting back to where we once were. I can't say we've matched the numbers, but absolutely people are returning to have communal experiences with arts and culture. So returning to theatrical production, returning to film festivals, returning to concerts. And some of that is even just observational and experiential from myself. Mm-hmm. There certainly is great turnout now, because I think during that period of time we all missed those experiences that we enjoy and value so much. And you know, everyone has a different interest and has a different level that they like to engage in the arts, but I think every little bit counts, and I think people appreciate the arts now in some ways more than they did before, because we weren't able to access it for almost 2 full years. And public art was a mainstay. I mean, that's why I think the city of Barrie did choose to invest in a staff person during that time, because it was something we could do. The creative team was really struggling with trying to keep our artists, you know, their spirits up, and trying to support them through that really difficult time, and trying to give our community something that they can enjoy and take their minds off of the circumstances. And public art certainly was able to do that in a way that very little else could.
Talk to me about the opportunity for public art to offer variety and selection. And the sort of the question behind that is, when we, again, talked about the scenario of going to Europe. Let's say we go to Rome and you see a statue and it's been there since the 16th century or something like that. That's a permanent installation. The differences between permanent installations and temporary installations, and what you're learning about the value that each offers.
Sure. In Barrie, we certainly have the short history we do have with public art, I think, is very much tied to permanent sculpture, based on some of the works on our waterfront. The sea serpent at the bottom of Mulcaster, for example, is part of the City of Barrie's collection. And I think naturally people associate themselves with that. I mentioned the Horn and the Heart earlier. That is considered a permanent work of art. As we progress in public art development, and I'm speaking broadly here in municipalities, I personally think that the word long-term or the phrase long-term is more suited than permanent. And that's largely because things do need to change in terms of what is suitable for public space, the messaging of a work of art, what is still relevant after a certain period of time. And some things, some objects are viewed differently after many years. And I think there needs to be an opportunity to reconsider things after a period of time. But certainly long-term is a great way to go. It is a more traditional way to go for municipalities and public art, and that remains important. But long-term or permanent works of art also require big budgets and lots of funding, because depending on their size and scale, you're talking, material, you're talking infrastructure, you're talking, safety requirements, engineering. There's a number of considerations. And although we want more of those, and we do have something in the works right now at the new Barrie Transit Terminal, it's actually our first work of art that's coming that we've done collaboratively with our corporate facilities team as they build that facility. So that's really exciting. We do have a new long-term artwork to look forward to in the years to come. But in terms of creating something that is perhaps a bit more nimble and maybe more associated with activation, because those works of art, those permanent works of art, become part of our environment. They become part of the fabric of our everyday, and they're always there. Something temporary can be a little more surprising, can offer those different points of view that I mentioned earlier. And we've certainly found great success with our temporary programs. So I mentioned Brightening Barriers is one of them. And that exhibition has repeated since 2021, every spring, summer, but every year we commission new artists and we do new works of art. So it is constantly evolving. It's only on display for 3 to 4 months. So and it's become something that people in our community look forward to. But there's also opportunity to change the dialogue around the forms of public art when you're dealing with temporary as well. And we actually we've just opened an exhibition this past weekend called Seeds to Sow, that is a large-scale exhibition of temporary public art, and it has allowed us at the City of Barrie to really experiment with form for public art. Because these things are short-term, and the artists were invited to respond specifically to the sites and the history and the potential for the future in the City of Barrie, these works of art really bring something special for a short period of time. And there's a variety of them on display on our waterfront and in the downtown. And they include traditional forms like sculpture, but we've also expanded to experiment with works of art made of new media or audio, sound. We've experimented with more conceptual works such as text-based or poetic phrases turned into sculpture. So there's a number of temporary works that are engaging directly with our landscape and with our environment that will be on display for 6 weeks only. And that really just gives us an opportunity to change the dialogue around certain settings and think about those spaces, but also think about our city from a completely different perspective.
Well, I'm looking forward to going and exploring that myself, and that carries on until November 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
You're
That's
correct.
Seeds to Sow. When we come back from the break, let's discuss now art and public art as an economic contributor, driver, and as it ties into really the environment that you talked about, creating that buzz and that draw into a downtown or a community to support the work of those who are investing through business into the community. So we'll be back with more from Carol Ann Ryan right after this break. This is Barrie, a city constantly evolving. At any time, a whole host of pressures challenge the intricate tapestry of city government. In this series, we will explore the priorities deemed essential for progress
even if they don't always inspire unanimous applause. Join me each week for a candid conversation with a member of our city government as we uncover the stories behind the scenes of Barrie, a city on the move.
Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and I'm enjoying a phenomenal conversation about art and public art in particular with Carol Ann Ryan, Public Art Coordinator with the City of Barrie, and really enjoyed that last segment, and I want to actually continue it on, but really as morphing into how the value in drawing people in to engage and drawing people in to participate and drawing people to really spark some enthusiasm and find, you know, a reason to feel invigorated, not only about their lives but also the community they live in. There's a benefit to it. There's a fringe benefit or a side benefit, and maybe it's actually a priority in there as well, that it can contribute and stimulate an economy, contribute to an economy and stimulate that economy. Let's talk about really what you've noticed certainly since 2021, and with, you know, rebuilding a community that's had to, you know, and really for those sole proprietors or those proprietors of the downtown stores and locations, the city across, you know, citywide, had to really find reason to be re-enthusiastic or enthusiastic once more about, you know, owning a business, about opening their doors, about welcoming their, you know, people in and giving them a reason to stay. There's actually some science behind the development of the mall as we know it, whether it's an indoor mall or an outdoor mall. But if I can get someone to spend just one more minute in my environment, in this environment, they're likely to spend more money, right? So talk to me about the role that art and public art plays as an economic driver.
Well, public art plays an essential role in creating place and what we call placemaking. And what that is bringing a cultural experience to everyone who finds themselves in Barrie. So whether they are tourists, it may encourage them to want to stay or return. Whether they are residents, it may encourage them to spend more time in a certain neighborhood or area, such as the downtown. But in general terms, for both of those groups, it encourages people to want to invest in the city of Barrie. And I think that is as a patron at our restaurants or businesses, or perhaps it's at another level from someone who actually wants to open a business in our community. There's something there above and beyond any other city in Ontario. There's something special offered by the city of Barrie, and that can certainly be enhanced through cultural experiences offered by public art. I think people are looking for something special when they're selecting the place where they might choose to buy a home, raise a family, or sometimes, you know, people will come through Barrie and, you know, get their education at Georgian College. What makes them want to stay? Well, part of that may be that Barrie has a dynamic cultural scene that they've really enjoyed being a part of, and they want to continue to participate in that. And I think all of that at the end of the day leads to people spending time and people spending money. And that's at, you know, a very simple, like I said, entry level, you know, participating at one of our restaurants, right through to choosing to open a business here.
If I'm going to make a decision on where I'm going to engage in a transaction, the simple concept of that engagement being a transaction is it sounds very impersonal. It sounds pretty dry. It sounds pretty transactional. But to go beyond that and to create it as an experience, I think is what I'm hearing you say. There's got to be more. There are phenomenal. Barrie has phenomenal restaurants. We've got some incredible food destinations. You can sink your teeth into any cuisine pretty much. And that is more than a transaction. that is people spending time together, that is people having conversation, that is relationship building, that is catching up on old times with old friends, etc. It could be a number of things. But beyond the transaction itself, it's an experience. But beyond even choosing to go to one particular restaurant, the environment that's created that surrounds the dinner, that maybe leads up to the appetizer or maybe takes shape after the dessert has been had. Talk to me about how, people's choices that they're going to make. You said that Barrie offers something unique, that environment offers something unique. That's time spent in a community. Barrie is a city not unique in this challenge, that if you actually were to remove all of the public art elements, if you were to remove the atmosphere, paint me a picture of what that would look like.
Well, I think the fact is, if you were to remove the public art elements and even say like the cultural activations that come from our performing arts community, I think you could be anywhere else. And I think, a generic city, a generic downtown, and what makes Barrie unique in that way is some of the unique artistic contributions that we have. And if I may draw on your reference to dining in one of our great restaurants downtown, well, you can go for a walk after you have dinner with your friends and family, and you can stroll along the streets and see the incredible murals that the BIA has commissioned for some of the alleyways, for some of the major intersections. You can enter Meridian Place and perhaps you see a performance on the stage. You can admire the Horn in the Heart in the square. You can find your way to, perhaps one of, a small place for a drink where there's live entertainment, or somewhere where there's a dessert on offer and you have a different view of the city from there. I think all of that makes people want to stay or return to the downtown.
So I want to address a topic that is sensitive in nature, but it's something that I think we're all aware of, we're all acknowledging, and we all share some responsibility in terms of what comes next. And that is, like many cities, certainly as we've suffered through a real economic depression, with high interest rates, with high cost of living, with people who are struggling to find a place to call home, a roof over their head, whether that's home ownership or in terms of the rental space, and groceries and everything. It's had an impact. It's taken its toll, and that toll has become visible in our city and certainly in our city center, and it's been challenging. And one of the things that, as a byproduct of it, has been people to choose to retreat from. And talk to me about the role that public art has been able to play in terms of reinvigorating and giving people a reason to want to come and participate, and how that's actually really changed the tone and really the dynamic of the energy in the core.
Well, I hope public art has done that for people, given, there's been a lot of activations, like I said, between the efforts of the BIA and the city of Barrie. There has been a lot of effort to activate Meridian Place, to bring art to our public spaces, that I hope encourages people to come downtown. Programming at the McLaren, a lot of reasons for people to continue coming downtown. But also, all of those activations are free to the public, whether they are the visual art, the performing arts. We've had any other number of things that have gone on in the last few years to enliven the downtown. It's available to everyone. It is there for those folks that may find themselves disenfranchised, but it's also available to anyone who just wants to spend an afternoon or an evening or a Saturday morning downtown. There's certainly, it's there for everyone, and I absolutely hope that it gives people an interest and a sense that there is something for them downtown, no matter who they are and where they come from.
Mm-hmm. And I can just imagine. I realize I'm touching on that subject. It has been challenging for many families, and for many families, we've had to pull back on where we apply our budget, what discretionary dollars we have available to us. can we afford to do this music or dance or art programming with our children? Having this option to engage and having this option to still, inject culture and connect with culture and public art. Maybe it has had an opportunity to sort of offset some of the difficult choices that people are making at home in their own budget. But when we come back from the break, I want to talk with you and learn from you what it takes to actually put on an installation, and where does that funding come from, and where, are there partnerships, or is it all taxpayer funded? I want to learn from you what it takes to do this, and I want to give our audience at home an understanding of sort of that investment, whether it's financial or participatory, and where those resources are coming from, and what you really depend on in order to make our community vibrant. So with that in mind, we're going to go to break, and we'll be right back with more from Carol Ann Ryan, Public Art Coordinator at City of Barrie. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and we're talking public art and the value that it brings to a community. There's so much to learn about and so many moving parts as we talk about, well, really what is the root of it, and how does it engage, and how do we interact, not just transact, and how do we grow from an educational standpoint? How do we share stories? How do we learn about our history, and how do we preserve that history into the future? And of course, you touched on a timely and relevant topic about the fact that even history, sometimes we might want to decide on what we want to prioritize as the message that we're going to carry forward. So the value of acknowledging that maybe permanent installations isn't the right word, but long-term versus short-term, and how we can use art to tell the story and really engage the public. So with that, Carol Ann Ryan, I'm thrilled to have you on here. All of this that we're learning about, and all the value that engaging and injecting art and culture into our lives brings, economically as well as emotionally, and through character and development of children, et cetera, into adults who are loving the city and engaging the life, in their lives, into the community that they want to call home. None of that is free. In order to make it happen, it is an enormous undertaking that requires coordination of artists and resources to make that art available, and where to house and host that art, and the engineering, as you referred to, that may go into it. So the coordination of different departments and different contributors and stakeholders. Let's talk about that. And in terms of talking about that, I want to bring back this latest initiative that Public Art has going on in the City of Barrie, and it is the Seeds to Sow, and it is an installation that is on the waterfront and throughout the waterfront and into the downtown area, the core, and it's happening now for 6 weeks until November 8th. And in order to put this on, you can find this, first of all, you can find this document, and there's actually a very handy map inside it. I'm not going to open it up here because I'll just mess it up, but you can find this map at City Hall, at the McLaren, at the tourism office in Barrie, and where else can we find it? The
Downtown Public Library, and in our community centers.
Fantastic. And so this is the latest initiative being put on in coordination through your office, and with the public arts coordination through the Culture and Economic
and Creative Development Department.
Sorry, Stephanie. Economic and Creative Development Department within the City of Barrie, but it's called Seeds to Sow. Talk to me about what it takes to put on an initiative like this, and really what you rely on in terms of contributions.
Thank you. Well, Seeds to Sow is our most recent project. It's a large-scale exhibition of temporary public art, as I mentioned earlier. And Seeds to Sow was an initiative that was approved by City Council The intention for this exhibition was not only to do something different with our public art program, expand the programming, showcase some different forms of art for our community, to educate and enlighten, to foster the development of our local and emerging artists. But it also does have an element to it where we're hoping to put Barrie on the map for arts and culture experience. So it's a destination. We've marketed this exhibition throughout Simcoe County, but also in the GTA. We're hoping to get art lovers from Toronto to take the GO train and come up to Barrie and see this temporary exhibition while it's on display. And as we discussed earlier, once we have people coming to Barrie to see the art, we hope to have them patronizing our restaurants and visiting our businesses, and also enjoying the sights of Barrie. Most of the installations are along the waterfront, so seeing what we have to offer there, bringing them into the downtown to see a couple of the installations. But it's very much related to how public art plays a role in economic development and tourism, and how we can turn something artistic and creative into an opportunity to showcase our city in a different way. And I think it really highlights our efforts to make Barrie a progressive city, to show that we are creative and innovative, and we recognize the value in art and artists and contemporary practice, while at the same time showcasing what Barrie has to offer. As I mentioned, the artworks themselves are site-specific or site-responsive, so they are unique to Barrie, about Barrie, and they are not artworks you'll see elsewhere.
Now, tell me, this is coming together as a partnership through financial contributions to make it possible, but also from a curatorial, if that's a word, perspective. You're partnering with the members of the McLaren. Tell me, give us a bit of a taste of some of the installations and what sort of the story is behind them, on what people can expect to experience as they go through this self-guided tour.
Sure. So as far as partnerships are concerned, we are working with the McLaren Art Center, where we have what we're calling a satellite exhibition on display. So in and among the galleries that the McLaren programs, one of them has been programmed specifically for Seeds to Sow. We're featuring an artist there named Derek Liddington. And for any of you who have been in the McLaren or the Carnegie Room ever, the room looks completely different than it ever has before. The artist has completely transformed the room, and I highly recommend everyone goes to see it and has the experience. And then outside of the McLaren, we have the artworks on display, as I mentioned earlier, in a variety of forms that were very much dependent on support and partnerships from within the city. And I'd like to take a moment to highlight how something of this size and scale comes together. You mentioned curatorial, so I am the public art coordinator, I am the organizer of the exhibition, all the nuts and bolts of pulling it all together with the support of my team at the city. But we brought in a guest curator named Katie Lawson to focus on the artistic elements of the exhibition. She has a curatorial practice where she works in temporary public art. She works in themes related to the environment and sustainability. And she is responsible for developing out the theme of the exhibition. Seeds to Sow speaks directly to a consideration of Barrie's past, and the cultivation of this project gives us an opportunity to consider what may come in the future through public art and in arts and culture, broadly speaking. The artists in the exhibition include those from our region, but also from outside our region. Some nationally recognized artists are part of the exhibition. And in addition to the artistic planning and elements of the exhibition, it's really important to recognize that although the City of Barrie has organized it and supported it, And I would add, as an aside, it's the first time the City of Barrie has done something on this size and scale. It is in part funded by the City of Barrie. So the City of Barrie has a public art budget and a public art reserve. A portion of that has gone into supporting this project, but not enough to execute. So 50% of the overall budget was fundraised. And thanks to the generosity of our local businesses and some individuals, we were able to match the funds that the city contributed, and in fact exceed the funds to support the exhibition overall. So in addition to working with our partners at the McLaren and also Tourism Barrie to help promote and drive the exhibition, we very much rely on the community members who see the value in our public art program and developing out something that will showcase Barrie in a way that's new and unique.
Well, no doubt partnerships are vital, and you touched on the city, Tourism Barrie, who's probably extending their reach through regional tourism development down into the GTA to attract people to come up on that GO train that you were talking about. So we look forward to that influx of visitors enjoying our local space, art, and also participating in the economy here. But you also mentioned the fact that the City, Barrie, and Council are really undertaking a first of this size. That requires buy-in, that requires likely you to have been presenting this concept to them to buy into. That's not something that this city can say, that legacy goes back to many generations, right? This is something that is newer for them to take this chance on investing, but obviously they must be seeing some of the benefit in terms of how art has played a significant role in the well-being of the local community and the economy. That's got to be a bit of a feather in your cap to be able to walk away and say that your submission was approved. Your submission got the support of council. Talk to me about the importance of that support, and we've just got a minute before we wrap this up.
Okay, absolutely. Council's approval of the proposal for the Seeds to Sow exhibition was foundational. We could not take it to the level that we have, and we're truly fortunate that we have a mayor and council right now who see value in public art, recognizing we are at these early stages in development of our program, and giving us an opportunity to test the ground, if you will, with something like Seeds to Sow. And I'm hoping that in the long term, this will lead to more support and investment right into the future, a bigger program, more opportunities to bring more free and accessible arts and cultural experiences to the public.
Well, at the end of the day, this is a group effort, and what I mean by that, civilization, society, living together, living in a community together is a group effort, and it requires obviously good governance and leadership from those we elect and appoint to serve our interests. But that's not really where it ends. It ends at us participating as well, and you can see that's happened through contributions from members of the community as well as members of the business community. And for anybody who does pick up a brochure on this initiative, Seeds to Sow, on the back you'll be able to see who contributed and get some of that detail there. But with that in mind, I want to thank you for sharing this hour with me and shedding some light on the value and the importance of public art. Carol Ann, Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on Barrie City on the Move. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll see you again on the next episode of Barrie City on the Move. Take care.